Good day, folks. Welcome to the MB Wildman channel. On today's video, I'm going to show you an excerpt from a DVD series called Focus on Trapping. It was designed here in Canada, and it was designed to teach people or show people the proper methods for trapping, how to do it, how to handle the fur, all of those things. Great information for the beginner. Also great for the experienced trapper that wants just a little bit of a refresher or some new ideas for sets or anything like that. If you haven't yet subscribed to the MB Wildman channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We certainly do appreciate the support. And if you like the videos, feel free to comment. So without further ado, here we go. Focus on trapping.
Okay, I'm going to show you how to set a long snare which is adaptable for both fox, coyotes, wolves, and lynx on a trail. First of all, I'm going to put on my rubber gloves to keep my scent from the snares. Then I have clean support wire and a long snare, which has also been cleaned and kept in a plastic bag. First of all, I'm going to attach the support wire, which is a fairly stiff, soft wire. Now you can vary the length of the support wire according to the distance you have to hold the snare out from the nearest suitable tree. In this case, it's a fairly short distance. Now this is a 5/64 snare made with, in this case, an amber Glock, but you'll notice that it has an extra ferrule loose on the cable, and this is what we're going to use to support the snare. I like to support this, to tie the snare to the tree about 5 feet from the ground to give a good high catch point. Now I'm bringing the ferrule down. And the ferrule will sit on the very tip of the support wire. Now, one of the advantages of using this type of setup is that you can vary the height of the snare by moving the support wire according to both the animal that you're trying to catch. Say you wanted to set this for wolves, you can increase the size of the loop and set your snare fairly high up. If you wish to use this for coyotes, you can decrease the size of the loop and drop the snare over the trail. Or if you wish to use it for foxes, again, decrease the size of the loop and move it further down on the trail, which makes this type of snare adaptable for all 3 Canid species. You can also use it for lynx by leaving your snare loop small but raising the loop again on the support wire. When the animal gets caught, it will pull the snare off of the support, and the animal is then attached to a fairly high spot, and it results in a quick, humane kill. Okay, I'm going to show you how simple it is to make a snare. I'm going to make quickly a 56-inch regular wolf snare. The only thing that is essential is a good pair of cable cutters. We've measured the 56 inches here. We cut the cable. We can improvise. Many trappers do have an anvil, but a piece of steel, even a hard rock will work. First of all, we put the cable through the lock and make sure the cable slides in the direction that it's supposed to. Bring the cable around, through the ferrule, through the lock, and back to the ferrule. Now, it's one thing that's very important is don't make the loop too big. Make sure the cable comes through both sides. Pull your loop down. Flatten your ferrule. Just to test the snare, touch it with your finger and it should slide easily. To finish the snare, we simply insert it through the swivel and put a small stop on the end of the cable. Again, make sure the cable comes through the stop before you flatten it. And that is our simple, quick, homemade snare. Now the snare should be cleaned in naphtha and boiled in a little baking soda to make it a neutral gray color and take the shine from the cable. Then it should be kept in a clean plastic bag until ready for use. And as an extra, I often put a small bunch of needles from the trees that I'm going to set in, spruce for a spruce area, pine for a pine area, in the bag that I keep my snares in. Okay, cam lock, ferrule, stop, and a swivel.
All snares used on land must be equipped with a self-locking device. The pieces used to construct snares must correspond to the diameter of the cable being used. The diameter of the snare and the height at which it is set corresponds, of course, to the animal which is to be trapped. For the wolf, the snare opening should be between 12 and 14 inches, and should be set about 14 inches from the ground. For coyote, it will be about 9 inches in diameter, and set about 10 inches from the ground. And finally, fox snares are approximately 6 to 8 inches in diameter and set about 6 inches from the ground. To put the snare on the support wire, insert the bended wire inside the swivel or the loop of the snare. Then simply pass the snare in the loop of the wire. Then pull and that's it. Your snare is ready to be set. To attach the snare, use a firm tree. Loop tightly the support wire around the tree and higher than the snare. Use pliers if needed. Then open the loop of the snare to its full extension and center it in the passageway. Ensure that the snare is at the recommended height.
The feeding station method should be used in areas of dense underbrush. The site should be inaccessible to birds of prey. There are 2 stages to the procedure. First, long before the trapping season opens, the trapper starts scattering a fair number of carcasses at the feeding station. As the weeks go by, the wolves will begin coming here to feed and will eventually get used to the site. When the trapping season opens, the trapper sets snares at the narrow spots along the trails to the feeding station. Wolves are very cunning, and the trapper must try to outwit them. He enters the feeding station by walking on fir branches so that he doesn't leave his scent. Before setting his snares, he removes his scent by rubbing them on evergreen branches. He sets his snares about 14 inches off the ground, with a 12 to 14 inch opening. To guide the wolf's head into the snare, he sticks a small, dry stick underneath the snare. If the trapper is using camlock locks, he makes sure to bend the snare wire so that the lock doesn't slip down and close after it has been set. 5 to 10 snares can be set in the same feeding station, depending on the size of the station and the density of the vegetation. When all the snares have been set and camouflaged, the trapper baits the feeding station one last time, spreading animal carcasses inside it. The bait shouldn't all be left in the same spot. Instead, it should be scattered all around the inside of the feeding station. When he is finished, the trapper never goes inside the station again for the rest of the trapping season, unless, of course, there is a capture. Before leaving the site, he is careful to erase all traces of his presence and leaves the site looking natural. The same set can be used for coyotes or foxes by changing the opening and height of the snare. The trapper's first activity in constructing this set is to check out the area. Choosing a trail in an out-of-the-way part of the forest, the trapper starts looking for signs that reveal the presence of a canid, be it a wolf, coyote, or fox. Here he has discovered coyote tracks near a mound of sand. This is a good location for a set. He then spreads out his equipment within arm's reach. First, a tarp on which to stand while making the set, so that he leaves no scent or sign of his presence. Then, the broom made of wolf or coyote tails, which he will use when he has finished his work. He also uses a spade and a trowel. The spade to dig the hole where he will place the bait. The trowel to cover the trap evenly with sand. The first step is to dig a hole for the bait, about 6 inches deep and about 4 inches wide, and at a 45-degree angle facing the sun so that the animal will have a better chance of detecting the scent when passing by. This careful trapper is wearing 2 pairs of gloves, the first to handle the trap tools, the other for handling the bait. These gloves are made of rubber to eliminate any human scent. As an extra precaution, he will scent the gloves by spraying them with coyote urine. He places the bait at the bottom of the hole to make the coyote think it has been buried there by another coyote. The hole is then carefully covered with a thin layer of sand. Then the trapper soaks a dry stick in lure, placing it on the surface of the hole he has just filled. Another dry stick covered with the same lure is placed in a clump of grass 15 or 20 feet away to arouse the animal's sense of smell and guide it towards the trap. The purpose of this part of the procedure is to make the animal less wary. Not far from the baited hole, he digs a second hole where he will place the trap. He places the sand he digs out on the tarp. The distance between the 2 holes is determined by the distance between the animal's tracks. Positioning the tarp pan towards the southeast is also very important, as the material that will cover the trap won't freeze as quickly. Therefore, the trap remains functional longer in the season. The trapper uses a number 3 soft catch with padded jaws. Always check all the parts of the trap. A number 4 or 4.5 is used for wolves, and a number 1.5 padded soft catch for foxes. He places an anchor stake through the trap chain and drives it deep enough in the ground to be able to hold a coyote. Once the set is placed in the trap bed, it should be placed off-center in relationship to the trail leading to the bait, and 1 centimeter below the ground. Under the trap pan, he places a piece of foam rubber that has been sprayed with urine. This is to avoid having a small non-target animal spring the trap. Urine is also sprayed on the piece of cloth he uses to cover the trap, so that sand doesn't prevent it from working properly. Then, with a sifter, he sprinkles a thin layer of sand on top of the trap. Once the set is finished, the trapper generously sprinkles coyote urine over all the soil that was turned. To make the site look natural, you can also cover the trap with dead leaves or any other material found around the site. He then uses the broom sprayed with urine to make the site look natural and to take away any human scent. Some trappers, like the one you see here, add a final touch before leaving the site. With a specially designed stick, they imitate the tracks of the animal to be trapped, making it look like an animal is going towards the bait in the trap.